Yes, Suhas, we are at about 158.60. So stabilizing.
Shall we start?
Yeah, please. Please go ahead, Rohit.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a very good morning to the speaker, Mr. Rohit Gupta, because it is 4:30 a.m. there. I'm Suhas Paranspe, President BCS 2021. I welcome all of you to this lecture meeting on an interesting topic. Before I start, uh, I will like to acknowledge and thank our Vice President Abhay Mehta, who helped us to connect BCS with Mr. Rohit Gupta on this subject. Let me briefly describe and talk about BCAS, Bombay Chartered Accountants Society. It is a voluntary body of 9,000 members with 40,000 plus social media followers. And annually, we impart education to the extent of 3 lakh plus hours annually. So that is what we normally do. And this year, with artificial intelligence, with digital transformation, I am sure it will be much more than what we have done previously. On 72nd Foundation Day, which happened on 7th July 2020, or rather 6th July 2020, our guest speaker was CA Deepak Parekh, Chairman SDFC Limited, and he complimented BCAS for being relevant for 72 years. We are 72 years of existence, and he complimented us for being relevant for 72 years. And his observation was it was possible because our vision statement says that BCAS is proactive to the change, and we follow it in words and spirit. Since March 2020, all our events were digitally conducted. We conducted lecture meetings, our refresher courses, which last for 3 days, 4 days, long duration courses, expert chats, this was done digitally. And even the students' annual day, Tarang, and many other social events also were done digitally. Tree plantation event was done on virtual platforms. Our flagship event, the 54th refresher course, RRC, is planned on 7th of January to 10th of January 2021 on a virtual platform for the first time. COVID-19 has changed the dynamics of everything, I would say, and we accepted the changing needs and made ourselves much more relevant with the digital transformation. We very well realize that BCAS can increase the reach and the scales at a reasonable cost with digital. Now coming to the topic of the day, in the history of human civilization, artificial intelligence, AI, is considered to be the next giant technological leap, similar to the internet, or maybe similar to the electricity. The importance of AI has accelerated many folds in the last few months as COVID-19 has brought to the foray the importance of digital technologies, including the artificial intelligence, in addressing the healthcare crisis, the restarting of supply chain, enabling online education, and almost every aspect of the economy. As the situation today, AI shape how you live, how you think, how you consume, how you vote, read, work, and so on. As accounts and finance and audit professionals, we are concerned with what all is possible through AI for finance function, accounting function, and for carrying out the effective audits. To enlighten the members on this aspect, this lecture meeting by Mr. Rohit Gupta is planned, and he will address us from Silicon Valley, USA. So as I said, it is 4:30 a.m. there, so it shows his commitment to BCS and to this topic. With these brief remarks, may I request our Secretary Samir Kapadia to formally introduce Mr. Rohit Gupta. Thank you.
Thank you, President Suhas Pranjpe. It is indeed my pleasure to introduce the speaker for the day. Mr. Rohit Gupta has a master's degree in computer science from Case Western Reserve University, the US. He is a well-known and well-sought-of speaker and an industry thought leader in the areas of emerging technology innovation, advanced analytics, automation, security, and privacy. Mr. Gupta has held positions as Vice President and General Manager for Remedy IT Services Management Division at BMC Software and Founding Vice President of Product Management for Identity and Access Management at Oracle Corporation. He was the founder CEO of Palera, which was the industry's first API-centric cloud access security broker, which was later acquired by Oracle. Post acquisition, Mr. Gupta held the position of Group Vice President for Cloud Security at Oracle Corporation. In 2019, Mr. Gupta founded Auditoria AI with the vision of assuring a new paradigm in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and automation for ERP financial applications. He is responsible for conceiving, developing, communicating, and growing Auditoria's strategy and business as an industry pioneer in the next generation autonomous self-driving finance back office. With these words, I would request Mr. Gupta to take the presentation forward and address the audience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction, for the very warm introduction, Samir, and for the very kind words, Suhas. It's my pleasure indeed, to spend a few minutes with you all this evening in sharing some perspectives around the advances in artificial intelligence, the advances in AI, particularly as it relates to all of us professionals in the ERP, finance, accounting, and audit domains. A very quick word about Auditoria AI, the company that I have founded and I am responsible for. Auditoria is an industry pioneer that essentially offers AI-driven automation or cognitive automation for finance. And we harness some of the modern technologies in AI that we will talk about today to transform the next generation finance back office. Indeed, as part of our technologies, we actually offer bots or robotic components that assist in performing a lot of the finance tasks, delivering forecasting, delivering cash flow or cash balance forecasting, and streamlining the finance shared services functions. Many of the industry leading ERP applications, such as those that you see on the slide in front of you, including the likes of Oracle and Workday and Sage and others, have certified and have partnered with Auditoria in delivering or in extending their applications, in extending their financial applications with AI. So in terms of the agenda for today, over the course of the next 35, 40 minutes, my intention is to give you all a quick background about AI and sort of talk about why it is relevant today. I think Suhas laid it out very well in terms of some of the contextual relevance for AI. I will then further extend and talk about some of the opportunities that you should expect for AI in the corporate finance function, and then discuss the journey that companies take on their way to driving this digital transformation in the finance function with AI, and make certain recommendations for some practical approaches that all of the folks here on this webinar can potentially consider as they adopt or as they explore AI in the finance function. And certainly at the end of the session, I'm happy to take a few questions. Now, what is AI or what is artificial intelligence? This new generation of technology that we are all experiencing, right? It is technology at the heart of it, very simply put, it is technology that enables computers the ability to be taught to learn how to analyze data, right? How to identify patterns from large data sets. It is technology that allows computers that can be taught how to execute tasks intelligently, execute tasks in a streamlined fashion without any errors, meaning very accurately, and then predict outcomes based on the data sets that essentially are available to the computers. AI is rapidly moving from what was considered experimental technology or technology that would ideally be used in prototypes to mainstream technology today. And I think, as Suhas had mentioned in his introduction, there are several domains where we see the applicability of AI, whether it is in healthcare, whether it is in pharmaceutical research, whether it is in consumer applications, education applications, and of course, in finance, accounting, and audit. Now, I have one slide which is perhaps a little bit more technical, and I sort of talk about the technology portfolio of AI. What are some of the capabilities where you have AI? Now, you will hear these terms, and my intention is to sort of shed a little more light on what these terms mean. So the first of these is a term called natural language processing, or NLP as the acronym goes. Very simply put, what NLP is the ability to extract or generate meaning and intent from text, typically in a readable, natural, and a grammatically correct form, right? I'm sure many of you have probably used NLP or natural language processing in your day-to-day lives. Like if you have, an Apple iPhone, you might, use an assistant called Siri to maybe ask for directions or ask for the weather forecast. If one of you might have some of you might have a Google Home device or an Amazon Alexa device, right? It understands English language and is able to essentially respond in return to that. At the core of it, NLP is one of the areas in artificial intelligence, in AI, that is gaining a fair amount of activity and research over the last several years. The next area in AI is called computer vision. Computer vision is really around the ability to extract meaning and intent from visual elements, meaning it could be characters in a document, digital document, like a PDF file, or in the finance world, from an invoice statement or a tax form. Computer vision can help in the categorization of content inside these documents, inside these images. And they essentially help in being able to rapidly assess massive amounts of visual content and identify patterns. And we will talk again about some examples where these are applicable in the finance function today. The third area within the AI technology portfolio that I'm sure some of you have heard of is this term called machine learning. Very simply put, machine learning is really this idea of, or the concept of training computers, training machines to identify patterns and predict outcomes, make classifications and predict outcomes from large data sets, right? Much like a human would, much like the human brain would. And it goes very well into the last area of AI in the technology portfolio, which is a term called deep learning, which you might hear as well from time to time, which is essentially the next level of sophistication, where it is really a subset of machine learning based on a conceptual model of the human brain called neural networks. The reason it's called deep learning is because these neural networks, as shown on the image there, They have multiple layers that interconnect and are able to make contextual decisions. This is the one slide I wanted to just sort of lay out there in terms of what, when you hear the word AI and what are some of the technologies that make up AI, you have a sense of what to expect. So now let's talk about where specifically AI can help. And in this specific context, what I essentially have in front of us here is a very simple chart from a research report that Deloitte had put together earlier this year. This is their State of AI in the Enterprise third edition 2020, which talks about, if you look at the chart here, what are some of the areas where AI is actively helping companies today. And in particular, if you think of companies, CFOs, if you think of finance leaders, finance professionals, what are some of the areas where AI is helping them? Now, the ability to make processes, business processes more efficient appears to have the most potential. The benefit of AI is, they offer these self-learning capabilities, meaning it can gain value over time. And by identifying a specific problem and defining the outcome, AI can enable CFOs to measure the technology's impact early on. So that's the next area that AI can help, and that is in accelerated decision making by getting even greater visibility and stronger insights. So as you can see here, this improving decision making is another element where AI can help. And then, of course, another comment that the research study found was enhancing existing services and improving the serviceability to customers, to client stakeholders, to peers, also is another important reason why companies are adopting AI, why teams are considering AI within their projects. I do also want to share another, another set of statistics from a study that Grant Thornton put out. This is their 2020 CFO survey that came out earlier this summer. And it was specifically around the opportunity for AI in corporate finance. And I thought this was really interesting. Essentially, what the table here shows is the various functions in the finance domain, right? The domain that most of you and frankly most of us deal with every day. Think of areas like accounts payable or FP&A, planning, reporting and controls from an audit standpoint, risk management, tax, compliance, treasury. Where is AI currently implemented, and what are companies planning over the course of the next 12 months or the next 2 years, and then potentially even further out? And as you can see, there is a very strong desire to aggressively adopt AI in these top 2 or 3 areas. So if you look at this accounts payable, it's almost like 2/3 of companies are actively implementing elements of AI within their AP function. And the expectation is that will continue to grow over the next couple of years. Likewise, right, in some of the analytical areas, some of the forecasting areas, planning areas, you're also seeing a lot of activity with AI. Another area is around audit. So if you think about the financial reporting, the controls monitoring, this becomes really interesting and really important, right? Identifying, for example, outliers in your general ledger, right, is another example of the types of potential areas where companies are actively considering implementing AI for. And we do believe that, again, as shown here in this table, that over the course of the next couple of years, the growth in adoption of AI driven technologies is expected to increase, is expected to expand. And CFOs, finance leaders, finance executives will continue to benefit from taking advantage of AI in these specific areas. So there is clearly a large opportunity. Companies are actively looking at leveraging AI in specific functions, and certainly it is a point of encouragement for all of us to consider this. Now, I want to highlight some of the key challenges that finance teams face. Let's take a couple of specific areas, accounts payable and accounts receivable. And these are again candidate opportunities that all of us probably are familiar with on a day-to-day basis. If we are, for example, if you are in the accounts payable function, right, we face challenges, right, where vendors have submitted or suppliers have submitted invoices that are inaccurate or that consist of incomplete data or have some inconsistencies in there. Seeking internal approvals might take a fair amount of time. Maybe there are issues around payment status, short pay issues, dealing with invoice accruals as part of your monthly close process or your quarterly close process, right? These are some of the challenges. It's very rare that you will find that in the AP function there are really no challenges. Likewise, on the AR side, there are also challenges that teams face. I mean, probably the biggest challenge is the lack of responsiveness on the repetitive follow-ups, where your AR clerk or your AR analyst is has to reach out to customers for checking on invoice payment timelines. And these are some of, again, candidate opportunities if you face challenges in these areas where you can consider approaches where AI might be able to help. Likewise, the other interesting fact, little bit of a factoid that we identified was this notion of recommendation analytics, predictive recommendation analytics was not used extensively in FP&A teams. What is recommendation analytics, right? These are essentially analytics that provide forward-looking insights, such as, which customers may be late in making payments, right? You are able to essentially understand and predict remittance and forecast on, remittance payment timelines. When COVID broke actually worldwide, one of the first directives that was given by the corporate boards to the CFOs was the fact that they had to actually go in and assess their customer sort of databases to figure out which customers, which industries are likely to be late in making payments, which of them might get most impacted. And obviously these are very time consuming, intensive analytical activities which they essentially their teams were working on. And again, it's in hindsight it's probably pretty obvious, but when you think of scenarios like industry verticals like travel, hospitality, these were the ones that got impacted right at the outset. And so again, if you have situations where you're trying to assess and understand where are there likely to be delays from, in the case of remittance, recommendation analytics as an example potentially could help teams. So again, these are some candidate opportunities where AI might be able to help, or where you all might consider leveraging AI-driven technologies to help you out in your day-to-day functions. Now, I want to talk about the path forward. So in other words, how do companies go down this journey of leveraging AI for some of their digital transformation initiatives? As there was a quote from Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, where he said that 2 years of digital transformation have been accelerated in 2 months, through the early sort of COVID pandemic, experiences, where companies are accelerating AI-driven digital transformation. But there certainly have been some myths out there. The first of these is this concept that adopting AI is very expensive and is very complicated. It's very slow. It takes a lot of time to actually see the results. Certainly, that is a myth. That is something that can be improved and can be optimized. The other concern that we often hear is the primary benefit of AI is labor cost savings, and that's far from it. I think the second and third bullet point, they go hand in hand, where this notion of digital transformation or automation potentially might eliminate the human element. If anything, it's actually the other way around. The human element gets amplified and actually gets accelerated, because the value that you can actually achieve is significantly higher when you can combine the human mind, the human contextual decision making and governance along with AI. There is, of course, a very common sort of concern, which is robots and AI driven, robotic activity is a little bit futuristic and potentially a bit scary. Some of you, I'm sure, have seen the movie The Terminator. And, there is a perspective, when you hear about AI and you hear about robots, that's the, look and feel that one associates, AI with. And that's certainly not the case. I mean, AI is, well controlled and well executed AI is something that all of us can benefit from in our day-to-day finance functions. And then the other myth I often hear about is AI is for just the super large companies, right? The large enterprises with massive budgets. It sort of dovetails well into the next slide, where I talk about the approaches to AI that I recommend typically for companies, for professionals, for teams, as they think about projects. If you're new to AI, I generally recommend starting off in a very tightly scoped departmental effort, right? Something that is very, very specific and focused, that is low in risk and frankly low in effort. I wouldn't boil the ocean, right? I would consider it, very, very carefully. Once you have some experience with AI technology, you can then extend it a little more operationally in nature. You can maybe have multiple departments collaborating together, where you have AI driven processes that maybe touch people across different departments, or a process that spans stakeholders either within the company or outside the company. And these AI projects might be even longer in duration. And then, of course, you have the larger projects or the strategic projects where you require the executive buy-in, which are broader in scope. Typically, there might be even a multi-year initiative, requires a larger investment and has a bigger payoff. It's very important to ensure that as you go down this journey, if you are new to this, it's important to start small, habit constrained, and then iterate and grow your way to something that's more operational in nature. Now, I do want to talk about some of the strategies that finance leaders have used in adopting AI. So yes, as they think about the approaches, as you had seen in the prior slide, the first thing that finance leaders benefit from is assessing internal capabilities, right? So the reality is AI is honestly the technology that AI comprises of is agnostic to function. So we generally recommend that finance leaders, CFOs, before they, quote unquote, plant the AI flag, they should check with your other teams or other functions if they have preceded them in leveraging AI within their functions, right? Maybe the supply chain team might have been using it, might be front office, sales and marketing function might have piloted some areas. The key point is to understand if there is an internal capability that exists, an experience that's already there in the company, and then finance can get a jump start by piggybacking on those functions' efforts. The next is to choose a data strategy. And that's important because the reality is data often resides in functional silos. and that's not rich enough to inform the machine learning model and to help with decisions. And so finance needs to generally come up with a strategy for breaking down these silos, and frankly, come up with a project that maximizes the data set, right? It could be your raw transactional data, it could be, let's say, your banking information, investment information, especially if you're, for example, trying to put together a cash flow forecast, right? Things of that nature. We also think it's useful for finance leaders to establish a cross-functional task force. It's best to treat AI and ML as a collaborative, iterative process. It is vital that whatever initial issues where AI is deployed, it's important for it to produce results that have a strong impact across the business. And when you experiment, you might see success, you might see a couple of areas where there are failures, that's okay. But the key point is to essentially ensure that you bring in different perspectives as part of the initiative. We've seen finance leaders also build a concept of a center of excellence, right? Depending on the company's maturity and interest in this area, right? The idea is to bring in a few trusted partners that can help establish a beachhead within your companies, within the finance function, for a center of excellence that can evangelize AI, that can give you best practices for deploying resources for pilots, leading training, right? Helping you bring in talent that can, that has the experience in these technologies, that can improve your own teams. And then, of course, in some situations, we have seen that the center of excellence might be within another function. Let's say you have a chief technology officer or a chief research officer. It could reside there as well. And then, of course, the last but definitely not the least, it's absolutely important for finance professionals to help their teams, resist and confront this fear or hesitation with AI, right? They may feel that, right? You might feel that you're not sufficiently knowledgeable or conversant to engage with peers in a dialogue about AI. But typically what we have found is through cross-functional partnering, through low risk, constrained specific efforts, finance professionals gain fluency in this domain, which will translate into confidence and frankly, a regular seat at the company's table when it comes to leveraging AI within your functions. Now, let's talk about some specific practical examples in your day-to-day lives where you will be able to use AI in the finance function, in the finance accounting and audit function. When I think of potential opportunities to leverage AI, I think of it in three buckets. So the first of it is leveraging AI or intelligent bots to augment humans in correspondence, right? So think of situations where your AP team gets a request from a vendor or a supplier. They want to know the status of a invoice, or if an invoice has been paid, when it will be paid. Or if, let's say, a customer needs incremental information from your AR team, your accounts receivable team might be required to provide an extra copy of the invoice, or may be required to provide a PO number, right? So this notion of augmenting your finance professionals in AR or in AP in correspondence, right? So think of this as software that, like a human, would communicate in English language with vendors. It will be able to compose an email in your regular, Microsoft Outlook or your Google, Gmail or whatever email system you use, and compose an email. It will be able to read a message. It will be able to read an attachment, so on and so forth. So these are some opportunities in this first bucket. So almost think of it as, again, AI for correspondence and communications. The second area where AI can help is in executing repetitive tasks, like very specific tasks and processes that you execute as part of your day-to-day jobs. So, for example, the ability to prepare journal entries before they are posted into a ledger, the ability to conduct accruals or essentially gather accruals data around invoices, the ability to retrieve compliance reports, update tax forms, aggregate payroll reports, execute monthly close activities. Again, these are just examples of repetitive tasks, right? They happen at a regular cadence, whether it is, you know, daily or monthly or weekly or monthly as appropriate. But you can have AI, you can set up AI such to assist you in executing tasks and processes. And then the third dimension of AI comes in predictive analytics, meaning being able to forecast algorithmically. Many of us, essentially are chartered with forecasting cash balances, right? On the basis of the prior day's actuals, forecasting, updated cash flow and, providing a cash flow performance statement. This notion of nightly forecast recalculation. It's many a time we are still using Excel to manually do this. And AI technologies can help in these areas. Now, the key is, as you think about these, is to start small, start in one of these areas. And again, I just wanted to essentially share a little more details in a few of these areas. So let's take an example, right? So if you think of in the AP area, like I mentioned, to augment humans in correspondence, like common vendor management tasks. Like let's say if you are onboarding a vendor for the first time, you're getting your vendors, suppliers information and updating it. You've got the data entry exercise, right? You can essentially have an intelligent email-based bot which can recognize, respond, and execute these common tasks and activities. It reduces the constant interruptions to the AP team. It doesn't sort of need a specific, vendor portal, that requires some specialized maintenance and setup. And it just uses your regular email, right? So it just uses your regular email system to engage with suppliers. Very, very straightforward. And again, there are multiple tools and technologies out there that can support you in this area. Similarly, dunning, right? Everyone, I think on the AR side, on the collection side, we all know this, but you can essentially have bidirectional dunning, bidirectional correspondence automation. And depending on the type of client you're engaging with, your intelligent bots, your AI, whether it's a fast payer or a slow payer, or if it's a strategic customer or a government customer, it can automatically adjust the tone of the dunning message. And it will automatically follow up with them, 7 days in, before, and then 3 days after, and the payment due date, and so on and so forth. So these are a couple of examples. Now, clearly, the benefit of AI comes in also in the notion of predictive analytics. And like I mentioned, remittance forecasting is an interesting area where I certainly suggest that, for those of you that are involved in strategic planning activities, forecasting activities, you might want to consider AI here, where literally on a per invoice basis, you can have AI support you in understanding which customers are likely to be late, which customers potentially might default, where might there be, you might also be able to get to the point where AI can even predict which date will a customer actually make a payment, or which date range within which they will actually make a payment. And the technology has moved sufficiently where you can see this. And then, of course, AI can help you in cash flow forecasting. AI can help you in being able to, get your statistical financial KPIs in place. As I sort of dig a little bit deeper into this area, I'll sort of show this in another slide, is, I mean, these are things that I'm sure some of you or many of you probably, deal with. Bottoms up forecasting, top down forecasting, right? Think of situations. Bottom up forecasting examples include, direct cash flow, or forecasting at a country level, or at a regional level, or at a product line, or at a particular SKU. Let's say your finance leader has required you to essentially generate a forecast. That's a bottoms up forecasting, and that's an exercise that is a lot of times very manual in nature, and AI can help you in both in the forecasting as well as in automating that. On the top down side, right? So think of situations like a working capital forecast request, a demand forecast, right? Setting up revenue and target goals, financial statement forecasting, right? Tax implication forecasting. And these are all, again, examples on a top down forecasting basis where AI can support you. And then on the line of business side, little bit different. Clearly, inventory adjustment, I think, plays to probably to some of you. But AI can also help in other aspects of the line of business, such as, being able to forecast around customer retention and employee retention, employee attrition, right? Other adjacent areas. Now, the key is to pick one or two of these areas and start from there. And so, again, these are, candidate examples that companies globally are using today to be able to essentially dip their toe into the AI world, especially in the finance function. And I'm hopeful that as you all see these um, examples, these illustrative options, hopefully they are able to essentially give you some candidate ideas that you might be able to leverage within your day-to-day responsibilities as well. The benefit of AI for finance teams is as follows. We believe that, number one, it eliminates a lot of the repetitive tasks that frees people up to focus on higher value added work, right? I mean, the following up with suppliers and customers and repetitive back and forth, I mean, it just takes a lot of time, and that grunt work nobody likes doing, right? So that is something that you can delegate to AI and have it take care of it for you. This notion of avoiding manual handoffs to improve the efficiency and the speed by which work can get done, right? Which specific tasks can get done in the finance function is another huge benefit that AI offers teams. The third benefit is reducing the risk of human error, right? Generally, especially if you're dealing with Excel, as most of us do, I mean, there is always the risk that you end up with errors, and that essentially could be costly, could have high impacts. AI can absolutely deliver on a predictable cadence higher quality services, and it creates future opportunities for continued improvement for all of us. So I'm hopeful that this, again, provides a framework essentially as you all think about what are some of the opportunities available and some of the benefits that AI can provide finance teams. So in summary, I encourage you to start thinking about opportunities by which you all can dip your toe into the AI world for the corporate finance function. All of you will have access to this webinar as well as these slides, and certainly if there are questions or individual requests, I'm happy to reach out to me, and we'll be absolutely be glad to answer any questions. There are other areas we talked about: building an AI center of excellence, evaluating and prioritizing in a few areas, piloting a tightly scoped functional prototype. These are all opportunities out there. I'm hopeful this session was useful to get an initial introduction and perspective on the opportunity for artificial intelligence in the finance function. I'm hopeful that you all will consider taking the next few steps over the course of the next, several months to embrace AI and assess it in certain functional areas that are relevant to your domain. And again, with this, I'd like to wrap up my particular session here this evening, and I'll open it up to questions. Thank you so much again for the opportunity, Suhas, Samir, and Mihir. Thank you again for giving me the forum here to speak to you all this evening. And I look forward to answering a few questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rohit. Chirag will handle the question and answers for you. Chirag, can you please take it?
Chirag, I have one question if
Yes,
I'm
yes.
allowed to ask that.
Please, go ahead.
Yeah, Rohit, this was an excellent session, of course. And I also see that there could be a great opportunity even for chartered accountants in a consulting domain, because as you said about building an AI center, evaluation of these areas, and then piloting this. So what do you think is the right way to be able to navigate oneself to this consulting domain? What should be done by the chartered accountants?
Yeah, it's a really good question, a really good observation. So generally, what I would recommend is identifying a couple of specific, capabilities that essentially the accountant, or let's say the finance professional, is closest to. So you might find somebody that is really focused on planning or budgeting, right? Or you might find somebody else who, let's say, has got a strong amount of experience in on the internal audit function, or for things like controls testing, controls monitoring. And typically what I suggest is to essentially educate, self-educate, and essentially start building competencies around the applicability of AI in that specific function. So let's take an example. If it is, let's say, the budgeting and forecasting, the planning and forecasting side of the house, it is about how can AI, help in, cash flow forecasting, right? You don't need to learn the algorithms of how to, how to build and train the algorithms. It's how to apply those algorithms in, against the data set. So let's say if you have regardless of whether you are using, systems like Tally or SAP or whatever is your ERP system, you have large data sets, you have historical data, right, across potentially, months, 12 months, 24 months, multiple quarters worth of historical data. The ability to apply some of these AI tools and generate these predictive forecasts is just a candidate example. And then that can then parlay and can be extended to be able to deliver consultative assistance as a career path potentially to others.
And these tools are available, or it could be available at a certain cost, and they could be, people could be given an orientation to be able.
That's correct. That's correct. These days, there are both commercial as well as open source tools that are available. The open source tools, obviously are, many times available at no cost, at no additional cost. They are freely available for downloads. Typically, they are meant for educational and trialing purposes, right? For the individual to get up to speed on how they leverage it.
Correct.
And then, of course, the commercial tools, if it is being used within a corporate function, like I mentioned, it's best to start in a much more tightly scoped fashion as opposed to boiling the ocean. And there, you'll have the benefit of having the vendor or the supplier that offers that tool, that will probably offer the training and that will offer the the know-how around how to apply the tool. Our company Auditoria is an example of one such provider that provides such services in AI for finance functions. So we can in the right construct, we would be an example of one such provider. I'm sure there are other such providers as well that can assist. Yeah,
Thank you so much. I think it answers all the questions.
that's great. That's great.
Thank you, Rohit, for the wonderful session and insight
No,
on.
you're not audible.
Now?
Away, it's better.
Okay. Thank you, Rohit, for a wonderful session and insight on the AI. And I think a lot of questions have flowed into the Q&A. I'll pick up some subject to the time constraint. But I think one very good question which somebody has asked is, Dhananjaya has asked is that, there is an AI tool. Is there an AI tool available for financial audit, that features the cloud-based client communication, risk management, planning, communication with those charged with governance, and in compliance with, he wants to know about even the international auditing standards like that are in US or maybe Germany or EU. So are there any such AI-based tools available on a holistic basis for an audit?
Yes, there are tools. There are commercial tools that are available, that companies are using to assist in their audit efforts. And again, as we know, a typical audit effort goes across, right, multiple functions, right? Verifying procure to pay workflows, verifying journal entry approvals, assessing controls, your SOX 404 assessments, so on and so forth. It is atypical to see one tool that covers all of the various elements that go or that make up an audit. I think that would perhaps be somewhat impractical. But let's take I'll also name a couple of these tools as examples. So, let's say if you are essentially looking to, as part of your exercises of being able to, validate your controls for, let's say, Sarbanes-Oxley 404 as an example. There's a tool out there from a company called Workiva. Their tool is called WDesk. It's an industry leader. It's a public company on the New York Stock Exchange. They do a lot of really good work in helping essentially do the controls monitoring, doing the automated filings, right, things of that nature. Companies like both Oracle and SAP also offer their own tools these days that they've offered now, AI-driven tools to assist in the audit. But again, they are specific to their application. So if you're a company that has implemented Oracle ERP or Oracle Financials or SAP Financials, you can leverage those. So there definitely are tools. My recommendation in these things is generally to, again, identify what aspects of the audit you would like to apply AI to first, as opposed to saying that, because as we know, an audit will have, the classic audit spreadsheet, as we all know, has about, 75 rows. And rather than trying to say that we are going to have one tool that tackles all of them, it's best to essentially start in a phased fashion and then proceed forward. I'll also make one other comment there, Chirag, just for the benefit of the person who asked the question. Some of the audit firms that actually do the audits, they have actually started building their own audit tools within their practices. So this is actually a new development that has happened in the auditor sort of landscape. So if you think of the classic audit firms like the Deloittes and the Price Waterhouse and KPMGs, etc., we are actually seeing them build their own AI-driven tools to assist clients in the audit work.
Very true. Very true. I think one more good question from Indian perspective is, I think, how if we can make a use of AI or machine learning for medium and small size entities, because the data is not very vast. So would you still suggest to look for some AI? Or a similar, connecting question was also there, that can we have something in AI where you can cluster or collect data from clustering certain MSMEs and then again get the output divided into company wise or something?
Yeah. So it's a good question. See, the best AI, and this is one of those myths that I say that I think mentioned in one of the slides is that AI could be considered as expensive. That's not the case. Elegant, well-designed AI can be applicable regardless of the size of the company. AI is not just meant for the large enterprises. Even mid-sized companies, regardless of geography, absolutely can benefit from it. A good example of it is, this notion of correspondence automation. So let's say either for your dunning efforts, right, in the accounting function, or for dealing with incoming inquiries to your AP teams, you can actually have AI bots that augment the human capability to be able to receive an incoming request and then respond to it, instead of essentially an AP analyst or a AR clerk responding to it. So absolutely, that is very much doable, and I would certainly encourage folks not to sort of potentially fall into the myth of AI being largely meant for large companies and as an expensive proposition.
Right. Another question, there are a couple of them which are a little bit industry specific. What would be the key role of AI in terms of NBFCs and housing financial companies, including certain things like expected credit loss model, which maybe you would be aware of, and they have to do provisioning on the bad loans. How could AI help them in that front?
Yeah, this is a very good question, and actually, it is something that. So one of the things that we have found on an industry-specific basis is the need to do deep cohort analysis. That is, again, that is very, very specific and tangible to that particular industry vertical, to be able to assess or to be able to look for exposure, either examples of these could be bad loans, or lack of credit worthiness for a set of entities, things of that nature. And again, so there are certainly opportunities where AI has been able to actually make a dent in that. In fact, one of the sort of recent sort of in this calendar year 2020, where AI was actually able to demonstrate its value to finance teams, was around being able to actually assess creditworthiness for companies during COVID, right? Because obviously, there's cash flow impact for obvious reasons, and the ability to dynamically, assess creditworthiness, bad debt write-off, manage bad debt write-off ratios effectively, things of that nature. AI tools have been able to help companies with. So again, it's happy to obviously engage with the individual who asked this question in more depth, but there are certainly some opportunities.
Another kind of an question, which is again like, can AI be applied where I do project kind of business, but they're not repetitive. So the analysis, how can AI help me, because it's not a repetitive nature or an homogeneous nature of item on which I'm going to be running that AI.
Yeah. See, that's a good question. See, the benefit of AI is amplified when you engage or when you leverage it for projects that are long running or that are repetitive in nature. There's no doubt about that. Now, can you leverage AI for something that is, let's say, a one-off, meaning a specific, individual or a tactical effort? Sure, you can. But what you will generally find is, for the know-how, the investment, and the time that you put into that, for the return that you get out of it, hopefully it's not just a one-time thing that you then, for lack of a better word, discard or toss away. And so the recommendation generally is, even though you identify tactical areas where you can start, the key is to iterate and over time, hopefully continue to build and grow on it, as opposed to, purely doing it as a proof of concept and then suspending it or stopping it thereafter. I suppose you can make that statement to other elements, if you will, of technology as well. But in the case of AI, the benefit of it is it gets better over time. It learns patterns over time. And so clearly the benefit you'll find to be higher in longer running initiatives or projects.
Sir, I think two different tangent kind of question is one, people want to know if you could guide them on any course, any website, or any curriculum which they can start getting knowing more about AIs and RPAs and machine learning. If you could suggest few of them where they can go and start, because with this, I think your presentation, a lot of interest has grown into the participants, because a lot of questions around that how do we start, or from where do we start to know more about this? If you could
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't I do this, Chirag, on this one? So there are absolutely a few specific courses around, in some of the online, training services. Why don't I send you a couple of links? Actually, and I think you all have my email address. If you can just share, Chirag, maybe your email address, I can actually send you a couple of URLs that you can then send to the community. That's one. The other thing that I would also do is I would recommend, there is a open source framework called OpenAI, which is gaining in popularity very, very strongly. And under the OpenAI umbrella, there are a few different frameworks that can be leveraged for the finance function specifically. And so again, for the folks that are interested in it, they can take a look at that.
I think that would be of great help, and I think we would definitely share with you the idea, and then we will share it on. So it's helpful to all. And I think another element is, obviously a lot of people have started asking quotes relevant to their entities on this Q&A, but I'm not going into particular quotes. But generally, people would like to know that, as you said, that it's not very costly as we think from outside. So what would be a similar range for an Indian entity which is around, let's say, a 500 crore turnover entity with one or two different kind of conglomerative products and several products in a particular line. So some maybe a base idea for people, because people have started asking quotes which obviously can't be answered here by you or anybody, but somewhere a brief idea about, is it too costly or it's minimal, or how does it work, or the initial investment is higher or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always a this question is always a little bit of a it's an it depends response. It sort of necessitates a bit of an it depends response. But again, to be frank, the reality is it's one of these where if you think about AI projects that are well defined, that are constrained, right, that are not where you don't essentially try and over complicate or try and do too much. Quite frankly, in my mind, I have seen initial pilot projects get off the ground for, I'm going to say, in the Indian market, for between 8 to 12 or 8 to 14 lakhs, right, in INR. So I mean, it's one of these where you can actually see success. And again, the key is defining scope, defining success criteria, and ensuring that it is tightly constrained. Rather than, if you go down the path of something, which is much more strategic in nature, yes, you will potentially, end up investing, significantly larger amounts. But tactical initiatives can start small and then scale upward from there.
I think it's great to openly share that stuff, Rohit, with us, because many would have avoided this question.
Well, I mean, the reality is it's one of these where, as a community, right, it's important for us also to know this at some level, because otherwise the risk we run is when it's an unknown, you don't also know how to calibrate what the spend should be in that area. And then if somebody comes and says, okay, you got to invest 50 lakhs and all of a sudden you don't know any better, and then you're frankly, you're kind of tied up.
Sure. I think one last question before I end this question Q&A. is where, in India, there is also a feeling that, if you start automating a lot of things, people will start losing jobs. And India is, a lot of emotional and sentimental entity. You guys in US have implemented, over a period and have increased a lot of automations. What's the statistics or a background in those developed countries? That are there a lot of job losses because of AI, or genuinely AI? Because many times I have heard AI creates also a lot of jobs, though the skills could be different on both the sides.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Right. That's exactly right. I mean, the reality is it's one of these where, um, the notion of quote unquote, job displacement or, of job elimination. Honestly, that is, if companies are going down that path with the approach and that being the primary driver behind introducing AI and digital transformation, unfortunately, that's a I think that's poorly designed AI in my mind. The reality is that it opens up greater opportunities. And again, very frankly, there's a lot of manual repetitive grunt work which people beyond a certain point, I don't know necessarily know that, or I won't necessarily agree that they enjoy doing. They just do it because it's required as part of the job profile. So if you can have technology that can take care of it, why not? Right? And it opens up other avenues. Here's the other important element to keep in mind. Whenever you introduce technology to do something on your behalf, regardless of whether it is in the accounting function or the tax function or the audit function or what have you, it still requires human governance. It still requires the ability to configure it, to tune it, to analyze the results. And so the examples I typically state is, like, when you're involved in a data analytics project, what would one enjoy more, the gathering of the data or the analyzing of the data? Probably the latter. So let the AI go do the gathering of the data and cleaning it up and normalizing it, and the human operator can spend more time on the analysis. And that's the critical piece, right? It's one of these where the reality is, I think, in our over the years in every industry, automation has taken place. Let's take an example in our consumer lives. When ATM machines first showed up, you know did the bank tellers think that their jobs are going to be gone? I don't think that's the case. You still have bank tellers, but people still use ATM machines. Same concept is metaphorically relevant in AI as well, right? Yes, there is the concern maybe, right? But we see this with clients all the time. They have shared services teams in India, in the Philippines, and that's okay. AI essentially complements and augments them.
I think excellent. If any of the other office bearer has any questions, Samir bhai or Suhas bhai, you can take that before we go ahead with the events announcements and the following updates.
No, thank you, Mr. Rohit. And only people have said to share URL on that. We will share, Chirag, that you take care wide, whatever. And one or two people have even asked your Indian contacts. So that also you can forward it to us. We'll give it to the people.
Absolutely. Happy to do so. And, we're glad to have the opportunity to help out those that either have further questions and Auditoria is, the company that I'm responsible for. We actually have teams in India, based in Delhi and Bangalore, that can help help you all as well as appropriate.
That's great to know. So you also have an Indian touch, which everybody is going to be looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Great
So
session.
thank you again so much.
Thank you. I will just announce the couple of events which are planned. One is a webinar on primary financial statements, which is projects of IASB. We have a keynote speaker, which is MP Vijay Kumar, followed by two of the speakers, Nilisha and Eda Matreneje. It's on 11th of November, 5 to 7 p.m. and it's free for all. Another flagship event and the most looked up to event of BCS, which is the 54th residential refresher course. Last year, obviously, we had it at Tirupati. This year, due to COVID scenarios, as on date, it's being planned online. There are going to be various speakers. The date is from 7th to 10th of January. The announcement is out. The booking is on. Early bird price is up to 30th of November. So I would request all of them to block their dates and as well as take the benefits of the online rates as well as the online model. And we have already operated the RRC model on couple of RRCs during the lockdown, which was online and went wonderful. So this would also go without any age. And the third program is data analytics for internal auditors. Again, the IDEA software has been taken care of, which is one of the IA-based software, which is over a period of around 5 to 6 days, 5 to 7 p.m. on 23rd, 25th, 27th, 30th November and 2nd December. Members can also take benefits of that. The announcements are already there. So those are the upcoming events in very close time for BCS, the good events. With this, I think I would like to thank Rohit Bhai for not only giving his valuable time, but also his valuable sleep. Obviously, tonight, US is totally awake because of the results of your elections. You understand that, but you are at the time zone of morning 5:30 or 6 a.m. right now. So we thank you for your valuable time and input, your efforts, and wonderful presentation to take us through and at least, in our insight, it ignites more to know about this AI and robotics, which is obviously the future as we all see. And thanks for taking us through that initial presentation, which helped us to open up our mind with a lot of questions and very well answered again by you for the knowledge of all of our participants. And hearty thanks from Bombay Chartered Accounting Society. And we would also disturb a couple of your more sleeps as we move forward for more seminars for BCS. And we would look up to that from an AI or machine learning perspective.
Yeah, thank you again. My pleasure to be part of this session, and and thank you again for the opportunity to speak with the community today.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks. You too.